All right, amidst all the breathless speculation, some of it that has presented itself as fact, obviously misleadingly over the last few days, we have a firm Christian McCaffrey update, and it came from John Lynch on KMBR this morning. Lynch said that McCaffrey is back in the Bay Area from Germany, and the hope is that the Achilles inflammation, which flared up for Christian McCaffrey right before they put him on injured reserve, that was during week 2. The hope is that that has quieted down and the 49ers can soon begin to ramp Christian McCaffrey back up. This has to work in stages. This is unpredictable. This is exactly what I said yesterday. No, Christian McCaffrey didn't receive bad news. In fact, there was never an actual report that said that. There were tweets and articles that cited a report very incorrectly that said that. So essentially, there were tweets and articles that fabricated information about Christian McCaffrey, and that just isn't right. So if you want the actually accurate report from a spot that hasn't misled you before, well, I think you could come here in this situation. The update here is that John Lynch, this is his quote, "Now we can start the process of building back up with Christian McCaffrey." Again, there is inherent uncertainty to all this because it's tendonitis. Tendonitis can see inflammation. The inflammation can go down. Pain can return. Pain can subside. In the case of Christian McCaffrey, the tendonitis obviously was bothering him during training camp. They shut him down for a shorter stretch of time, about 2 weeks. Then they began ramping him back up. We saw Christian McCaffrey onto the back practice field running what looked to me like full speed. He was running routes, doing cuts off on the side. That was as week 1 was approaching. Then he didn't play in week 1 because, as we learned later, the inflammation flared back up. And the worst day for Christian McCaffrey, according to Kyle Shanahan, was following week 1 before the 49ers week 2 game against the Minnesota Vikings. And at that point, the 49ers said, hey, we need to take a step away from this. We need to put Christian McCaffrey on injured reserve because that's 4 games minimum. And with those 4 games minimum off, it would give everybody a chance to take their breath, really force him, protect him from himself, force him to sit out for a bit to see if they could get the inflammation under firm control, because the 49ers realize that the marathon of the season is more important than the sprint of the first few games. So they did that. Christian McCaffrey has obviously seen some specialists, including one in Germany. He's long consulted people outside the team per se to take care of his body. John Lynch said that this happened after consultation with the team because everybody wants to be on the same page. McCaffrey is now back. They hope that the inflammation will stay down. I think at the moment it is down, but this has been an unpredictable situation. Tendonitis is an unpredictable condition, and the ramp-up process should begin fairly soon. That is if Christian McCaffrey meets the checks that he needs to meet. It's a scientific process now. You just don't go run back out on the football field. You go through scans. There are obviously other examinations that happen. So it still is indefinite. Nobody's sure at this point what the exact return date for Christian McCaffrey will be, which is why there's this vacuum that people try to fill with news that doesn't exist, with fabricated headlines, which we saw a lot of yesterday. But it's not that hard to read through it if you actually read. If there's actually some reading comprehension here, you'll see that this is the case with Christian McCaffrey. And it's okay for there to be uncertainty. The 49ers are fine with it. The 49ers need to be smart about this. You can't rush Christian McCaffrey back too soon if the tendon is still acting up, because then the chance of an Achilles rupture, which would be catastrophic news, is much higher. So you live with the uncertainty, you move forward. This is why you try to build as deep of a roster and a deep of a running back room as possible. And the 49ers obviously have that with Jordan Mason behind McCaffrey. They also have Isaac Guerendo. Talked to Chris Furster yesterday, and he said that he thought Guerendo was really, really close to ripping one of those runs last week in his longest extended action yet, free for a really, really big game, maybe big gain, maybe even a touchdown. So we'll see if Isaac Guerendo sees another escalation of action this weekend against the New England Patriots. Other news for the 49ers coming out of John Lynch's call with KMBR. Jordan Elliott, this is good news. Jordan Elliott, the defensive tackle who was carted off the practice field yesterday, Lynch said that wasn't a typical cart-off situation. Elliott stepped on somebody's foot, rolled his ankle, and he has a chance to play on Sunday against the Patriots. Lynch said probably questionable, although he won't be sure of the exact injury designation until a little bit later this afternoon. So we'll watch that at practice today. But that would have been really, really bad news for the 49ers along the defensive interior after losing Javon Hargrave, probably for the season. To also lose Jordan Elliott, who was the guy who was supposed to fill in for Javon Hargrave for an extended period of time, would have been really tough. But it sounds like good news for Jordan Elliott after getting carted off the field yesterday. But bad news is likely for linebacker Curtis Robinson, who also was carted off the field on Thursday. That was a non-contact knee injury. We always cringe when we hear that term, non-contact knee injury. And John Lynch said that the 49ers are bracing themselves for the worst in that scenario, although nothing is official yet on Curtis Robinson. Deebo Samuel does indeed have a chance to return this week, which would be early. They expected a couple weeks, but John Lynch said that the best athletes heal a little bit faster than others. But when we look at Deebo Samuel, he's got to get through the whole week of practice and the whole week of tests and checkups and all that stuff. He's got to get through everything and hit the benchmarks that the sports performance department requires before the 49ers decide thumbs up or thumbs down on his playing availability for Sunday. So especially since he's technically ahead of schedule, I think meeting all the benchmarks are going to be important because the 49ers don't want to put him out there with a risk of re-injury. Ricky Pearsall, 49ers fully expect him to be back at practice next week. Pearsall cannot return until week 5 at the soonest for the 49ers, so he's going to have to miss the next two. Well, no, he could actually return. Yeah, week 5, but he's going to have to miss the next one game. Christian McCaffrey has to miss at least the next 2. Ricky Pearsall has to miss this 4th game of the season, and then he could be back week 5 against the Arizona Cardinals. But the practice window can open for him as soon as next week. And John Lynch said that all signs point to that practice window opening for Ricky Pearsall next week. Again, this is a miraculous situation. A bullet entered his chest, exited near his armpit, didn't hit any vital organs. Ricky's already been working out. He's been back at the facility since I think maybe 1 or 2 days after the shooting. So it is a miracle. It indeed is that this is the case with Ricky Pearsall, and the 49ers expect to see him back on the field soon. I was at the courthouse yesterday. The defendant in that shooting, who's been charged with attempted murder and armed robbery, is going through the legal process right now. And as I reported from the Juvenile Justice Center in San Francisco, the next hearing has been set for November 12th in that case. I also reached out to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, and I asked them if they've decided if they are going to try to pursue this in adult court instead of juvenile court, and a determination for the transfer hearing, which would be required to move it to adult court. The determination from the DA's office has not yet been made. So wanted to keep you updated on that. But the good news is that Ricky Pearsall is in line to return to practice next week, and I cannot overstate how miraculous that news is, given what happened just a few weeks ago. All right, there's your accurate 49ers update. I know it's tough to find one these days, but thanks for following along. I'm headed down to Santa Clara. We'll talk to everybody soon.